looks in.
Laura, for those of you that don't know her, has amazing handwriting, and I asked her to bring a sample.
Yeah,
We're
there
just
you
going
go.
to put your
You're welcome.
internal
I also
Reddit.
am a lefty, so for those of you in the room that understand the pain that we go through.
That's where we wanted to start.
Thanks. Let's get into
5
it.
minutes on left-handed pain. You have helped build some of the best and biggest communities in the tech industry. Yelp, Duolingo, now Reddit. I know Reddit is a incredibly huge place, 50 million daily active users, 100,000 communities, 13 billion posts and comments. Is Reddit, we're not in the internal Reddit meetings, so is Reddit still trying to be the homepage of the internet, or is it something else?
Listening. No one is listening. So is it still trying to be the front page of the internet? I think it's expanded. Right? I think there's a lot of ways and reasons that people are coming and finding Reddit. One of the comparisons I really like is this idea that Reddit is like a city. Because think about the reasons you come to cities, right? You go to meet your friends, and you go to shop, and you go to explore new ideas, and you go to be entertained, and all of these things. You go to protest. You go to participate in government. And I think that cities are really the defining aspect of humanity. And I would say that you don't really have humanity without cities. And Reddit is this digital manifestation of these ideas. And so, I think, again, there's a lot of reasons and ways that people are experiencing Reddit. But for me, what I've experienced is that it's really the most human place on the internet. And it's this powerful example of community at scale.
Wow, that was a really good answer. You're like an executive. I've known you for a long time, and I knew you when I know you're very much in the weeds of things, and you're in the trenches. But to see, just to listen to you speak, and to listen to how you have evolved your career is super inspiring to me to watch. And I wonder if one of the things I just didn't know the answers to this. I'm really interested in it. I'd love to know the logistics of just around what it means to be the VP of community at Reddit. Like, what do you do? And, how big is it? Just kind of like frame it for all of us of sort of what does the community kingdom at Reddit look like?
Yeah. I know everyone says this, but I feel like my role is slightly unique because whereas a lot of organizations, community is a lever, for their business. At Reddit, community is the thing. It is the platform, it's the product, it's the purpose. And so my role is unique in that, like many people in this room, I oversee a really large community team, a community discipline at Reddit. And that encompasses, 70-ish people, but it's everything you would expect from community, right? It's events, it's programs, it's engagement, it's support, it's product, it's, we have data and user research and all of these things to try and bring value to our community at Reddit and to our company to achieve our goals, right? Then there's the other side. There's the purpose of what Reddit is and what it stands for. And I kind of become this de facto representative of the idea of community. And I think that, at the highest levels, I am representing the equities of community, the idea and the concept, not only at Reddit internally, but also just like, what is community? Full stop.
Yeah.
And I kind of become the representative of that concept because of being in the position at Reddit.
So you have to just, let me restate that and tell me how close I am. You have to sort of show the sort of overall mission and the value and the vision of where the community is going, but you also have to make sure that you're sort of managing, coordinating the programs and the activities that actually are driving those things. So it's like,
correct.
It's up here and then it's also down here.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
How did you do this? Like how did you go from somebody that's like the person running the communities, running the events, like, doing all the hard work to then move to that next step? Like how did that happen?
Well, I can't pinpoint like a thing or like a silver bullet, certainly. I think that it is a consistency around a mindset. I have learned to become hyper-focused on delivering impact. Just, what am I going to do today that's going to deliver impact? How am I going to deliver attributable value to the thing I'm doing? Because I learned a really tough lesson early in my career that not all work is valuable, you know? And that was a hard lesson for me to learn as an achiever, as someone who loves to work and even enjoys the process of working. But there's a lot of cases where work feels valuable, but it actually doesn't deliver anything tangible. It doesn't deliver a result. You know, you're writing long emails, you're crafting beautiful documents, you're building a lovely presentation, you're building a landing page. You know, you're doing something that feels like work, but then at the end of the day, you don't have any result to show for it. And it was a hard lesson for me to learn. And I think that, you know, realizing that to get more, you have to focus on less. And you have to really understand that no is your greatest productivity hack.
Yeah. That
you really have to learn how to do that. Because the best leaders that I saw doing this well, they had this almost like obsessive, insatiable need for achievement and focus. But it was never for themselves, right? They were always doing those things with this like humility and honesty, and really like an unwavering desire to bring people together to support a cause that was bigger than themselves. And I think that unlocking that, realizing that that my achievement and my focus really needs to be around bringing other people together around a goal is what I started emulating, and that's when I started seeing success.
So you mentioned a phrase that I haven't heard a lot, attributable value. Like, how do you delineate between the one side of that coin and the side that's not valuable? Like, what matrix do you put it through? How do you think about it?
I think it needs to be simple and practical. I think a lot of us in the industry are trying to figure out the hack. Like, how are we going to create the best framework for discovering community ROI? I don't know, right? I think ultimately there's like some pretty simple metrics we can follow. And this is one of those times where I think work can get in our way. We can get so in the weeds of over-engineering metrics and goals and segments, when really we can just be practical. And we can say like, hey, is this moving the needle? When we worked together and I was at Duolingo, one of the metrics we tracked was number of events a week. That's so easy to hack. I could have hacked it if I wanted to. Yeah. But it showed that we were up and to the right. It showed my leadership that we were working on something that I could show attributable progress to. And I think that we need to get out of the weeds of creating these convoluted metrics that have 17 inputs that when you put in front of someone, they don't really understand what makes it work.
Yeah.
Break all those inputs out and just like be practical. Is this growing the business? Yes or no? And if you don't know, then like don't optimize for it. Optimize for the thing that you know is going to give attributable value.
In startups, there is this thing created called the business model canvas, and it's this huge formula of like how to build a business. But actually, really the key thing that matters is like, do you have customers that will pay for your product, and do you add value in their life? Like that's it. That's like it. Full stop. I don't need all the Mario pipes and everything to figure out like where it's going. And for both in community and out, I think, and something that I saw when you were at Duolingo was like growth is oxygen. And like if you're growing and you're showing that, and it may not be, as you said, like maybe showing this meteoric event growth that you had when you were at Duolingo, maybe actually it's not the biggest impactful thing, but it's the thing that will get the people that make the decisions to actually move the needle with the things that I actually know will have a big impact. But growth, I don't know, how is that framed with you? Like,
yeah. I mean, yes, and I think we'll get into this a little later, but, community, they're most vibrant when they are actually impacting what's being made.
Yeah.
And that takes guts from a company to be willing to say, we are going to put this essential component of our business in the hands of our community. We are going to decentralize. We are going to give up control. And a lot of businesses are not willing to do that. And those that are willing to say, hey, this is something we cannot achieve without our community. You know, Duolingo cannot create courses without its community. Yelp cannot have reviews without its community. Reddit cannot survive without its moderators. It cannot. It's a symbiotic relationship. It's giving up control. And when you do that, you're able to say, here's the value that they create. Here's what they're actually bringing to the table. And then there's no question of whether or not they're valuable. But if you're not willing to give up that control, it's always going to be a little bit opaque, because it's like, well, we could do that. It's just convenient if the community does it.
Right.
Right? There's a nuance there that's really important to hit.
Describe for people what you did with Duolingo specifically. Where did you start? How did it grow?
So it's interesting because Duolingo, the community is really in their DNA, because the founder, Luis, invented CAPTCHA. He invented CAPTCHA and then reCAPTCHA, which for those that don't know, is those squiggly lines that you fill in, right when you're saying, like, I'm not a robot. But it's actually digitizing out-of-print books. So when you type in those words, there's like kind of a back end that's serving you words that a computer can't understand from a book. So Luis understands this concept of computers. He's pretty smart.
He's smart.
He really understands this concept of computers and humans working together to solve a problem that neither of them could solve alone. And that is really what we're doing as community professionals. We are trying to find that balance. And so he put that into the soul, into the DNA of Duolingo, in that the community was actually creating the courses. So Duolingo created 4 courses initially, and then handed over tools, which I saw and tried to use. They were janky as anything. But if you're solving a real problem, you do not need a fancy suite of tools to solve your problem. Because you are adding value to the people that are participating, and those that are participating are adding value to you. And so he handed over the tools to the community. Turns out they were willing to help create courses. And so they were able to scale to over 100 courses from the 4 that they generated in-house, because they gave that power to the community itself. They created a waiting list. You know, I'm glossing over a lot of details in this story. But once they found that product market fit, then they started developing the tools. Then they started building systems that scale for quality. But initially, it was just like, hey, can we get our community to create language courses? Yes? OK, let's go.
Yeah.
And so once we figured that out, and I think this is what you're referring to, we thought, well, can we apply these community principles to other problems to solve in the business that we can't solve alone? One of them was, it's a hypothesis of, like, does Duolingo have a happy churn problem, right? Where you use Duolingo, you learn a language, you get abused by a passive-aggressive owl, and then you do the thing.
Yeah.
You, like, take your trip.
You succeed, and then you tell the owl goodbye, and then you keep moving.
Dating apps have the same thing.
Yeah.
It's not like you're going to go back and learn Greek.
Right.
Right? It's like, okay, I learned French. And we thought, well, people are probably leaving.
Yeah.
And they're probably going and practicing their language. Can we apply these same community principles, get a proof of concept, build something test something that's very small, then build systems to create in real life language events?
Yeah.
And we did. We started really small. I was hosting events myself. Once we were hosting about 10 a week, I started spreading it to volunteers. I started talking to people that would come to the events and say, hey, would you like to host one of these? Like, I'm hosting a Spanish event. Do you want to host a French event?
Yeah.
And once we got that initial fire, we were able to, just with very basic systems, Google Forms, spreadsheets, Meetup, just test to see if it would work.
Yeah.
And that's when you and I got in touch. That's when I started using Bevy, because we did this calculation of, okay, we're holding 10 a week. What would it take to get to 100 a week? What do we need to get there? It's a classic case of the monkey and the pedestal when your answer is, we need software. Do you know the story? The monkey and the pedestal?
No.
So let's say that you want to get a monkey to stand on a pedestal and recite Shakespeare.
Okay.
Right? Okay? The first thing
I think about doing that a lot, so this is super helpful to me.
Sure, this is just a
Go on.
private
a lot of
session
notes here.
For the future of your product.
Therapy.
So many times people will say, oh, we got to build a really great pedestal. Right? Oh, we need to build this beautiful pedestal because the monkey, how high does it need to be? No, that is not the problem to solve. The problem to solve is how the hell are you going to get a monkey to recite Shakespeare? Like, how are you going to do that? Why are you thinking about the pedestal right now? That is not the hard thing.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times people get caught up in, oh, I need this software, and I need these resources, and I need this thing. No, you got to figure out how to get the monkey to recite Shakespeare. You got to figure out how to get volunteers to host up, at our peak, 800 events a week in 100 countries and 800 cities.
Yeah.
And so you can't get bogged down in those details. You have to solve the real problem. And frankly, if it's a real pain point, if it's a real problem to solve, you can solve it with janky tools. You are solving a real problem. You are adding value to the members that are participating, and they are adding value to you.
I.e. the spreadsheets or just whatever.
And it happened with the Duolingo language courses. So the program was called the Incubator. It was not easy to use, but the people that were passionate about it used it.
Yeah.
It happened with Duolingo events where, before we were using the product, we were just using the spreadsheets, and we were still able to show a proof of concept.
Right.
And that's really critical.
Yeah.
To not get stuck in the weeds of, I need this or I need this. If you're solving a real problem, you should be able to do it.
I had this experience recently with a really large nonprofit, and we were, they were sort of very frustrated about, the sort of intricacies of SSO and this and that and the other. And we just kind of stopped and said, look, what you're talking about, I get it. It will make it feel perfect to you, but none of it builds community.
Correct.
None of it. All the time and energy we spend in the last 3 or 4 months is a complete waste of time to building community, and you don't even know if you've got that figured out yet. So, can we start there? And then, we can get all those other details figured out. Great. But I think that's your point of stop worrying about the things that actually aren't important, that actually aren't going to create value in the lives of the people that you are supporting and that care about whatever, thing the tribe that you're building, and stay focused on the right thing. You can get to those later this is the thing. It's well, at what point? Well, it's not at 10 events a week. To your point of look, we were doing 800 a week. I've never seen anyone do that kind of scale. It made, what we were doing at Startup Grind look like, kind of we were kind of embarrassed at our efforts to see what you were doing. But I think it's really you driving that relentless focus on what's important. What are the key things? These metrics are important. This is going to create these outcomes, and then at the end of it, we'll figure out all the little details.
I think it goes back to this idea that not all work is valuable.
Yeah.
It's really easy to get bogged down in the work. It's really easy to build a beautiful pedestal. What's really hard is to create real community. It's really, really hard. And so focusing your energy on that versus what you need or what you don't have, that's the problem to solve. And unlocking the right motivations and understanding what's going to add value, not to you as a business, but to the community members that are participating. Figuring out that why, it's these are real existential questions. You're going to get the software. The money will come. All of these things will happen. But you have to solve the real problem and not get stuck in the weeds of all the details.
This is somewhere where you and I are very much aligned, and it's sort of contrary to a lot of other people, and that is the optimism around what we're doing and how important it is, and how we as in the industry, we should be so proud, and we're creating so much value. And I don't care if somebody tells me I'm not, or if they don't understand. It just means I've done a bad job communicating it, because I know it is so valuable. And we, something about you that reminds me of a story about somebody I talked to recently who just went to a new company, and they said, look, I'll come, but I'm not going to join unless XYZ happens. And they kind of put their foot down, and it was a really cool job. And the company said, all right, we'll do it. And they had been talking about that for 2.5 years. And I know you have done similar things where you've said, look, whether it's going to Reddit or going to Duolingo or whatever, say, hey, look, I'll put my time, energy, and talent and heart into this. But you got it. I'm not doing it unless we're doing these things, because this is where we're going. This is what you ask of me. This is what I require of you. It's a two-way street. And those things have worked out for you, right? You've gotten those things. And so, what's your perspective on that, and sort of some of the perception versus what's been quite different with you than a lot of other people?
Yeah, I mean, that's a big question. When I'm making a big decision, I generally go back to my own core principles. You know? And it's been interesting because throughout my career and throughout my life, those have changed wildly. And I think that, or the envisioned future, I guess, has changed wildly. But what hasn't changed are the core principles and what really matters. What's interesting is that they've shifted roles. You know, so like when you're junior in your career, you're thinking like, I'm up for adventure. Like I want to travel a lot. I don't really care if the community like goes under. Like I just want to go and get my feet, you know, get my feet in the water. And then later you're like, well, you know, I want a place where I have a little bit more work-life balance, or I want a place where there's people I can learn from, or I want a place where I'm going to optimize for cash. You know, there's like different times in your life, and I think that to make a good decision, you have to be willing to know what those things are, and know where they rank, know how they stack rank, because then it goes back to the focus. Then it goes back to saying, okay, to get more, you have to do fewer things. You have to focus on fewer things, decide what really matters, and these other things, again, the ultimate productivity hack is saying no. Saying like, these are not the things that matter right now. They could still be wonderful ideas, right? We cannot do everything. So many times there are teams that I talk to, there's like a 10-person community team, and they're doing like 15 things, right? Or more. And I'm like, so that's like not even one person per thing. How are you going to make a big impact? It's do one thing and put all 15 people on it, or all 10 people in my example. Do one thing really well. Land this opportunity, and more opportunities will come. And that focus on what's most important in your life, it extends to your personal life and your own personal priorities of what matters. And it's funny, I was talking to a different group. Like, I was on the road at a different event on I have 2 sons and a daughter, and on 2 of my sons' first day of school, I was on the road. And that was a choice that I made. That was I'm not victimizing and saying, oh, it's so sad. I made a choice to
prioritize that.
Prioritize the work I needed to do that day and miss my son's first day of school. And it was heart-wrenching, right? But for me, that was the decision that I made. And I think that when I talk to my kiddos about it, you know, it's like, hey, I love you, and I'm making this choice. And I think that it almost extends to a company as well. Like, I respect you enough that I'm going to tell you what I need right now. And I hope that you respect me in the same way, that you're going to say, I'm not going to be able to provide that. And then we can shake hands and like go the other way versus this opaque ambiguity of like, do you really care about this thing I care about or not? Like that, no one's going to be happy. Everyone's just going to be disappointed.
A few years ago, actually, on this stage, Startup Grind, I interviewed Steve Huffman, the co-founder and CEO of Reddit, and he said something that it's always like, I think the best, or one of the best definitions of community, and would love to get your perspective on it, but he called community the soul of a company. And that was the first, maybe somebody else has said it, that was the first time I'd heard it said in that way. And I was just wondering, like I agree with that. How if somebody doesn't understand that, or the importance of it, we talked a lot about ROI, but just, you know, some of these companies like, you know, Atlassian, you know, had the founders like pushing community from day one. Duolingo, founders pushing community from day one. But if I'm not in that kind of situation, like, how do I convince people that this is as important as it actually is, if it is truly the soul of what a company is?
It's interesting. I need to think on it a little more because I'm going to give you like a bit of an off-the-cuff answer. I don't know if community is the soul of every company. I don't know. It could be the case where like we are hammers and everything is a nail, and we want community to be the soul of every company. But I don't know if it's something that we, like, if it's not driven from the top, or if it's not really believed in, if the soul is not, let's say, not even driven from the top, but if it's not like subsumed, if it's not felt, if it's not palpable, you know, some companies you can just like feel it. I don't think it's something you can like convince people of. You couldn't be like, you know what, Derek, Q4 OKRs, soul. Like everyone at the company is going to really understand that community is at the soul. Yeah, I think, again, sorry to be a broken record, but I think what you can do is demonstrate the value of community.
Yeah.
I think you can demonstrate the impact of community. I think that you can identify ways to, get your community to just even add value to their own lives and then see how that reflects back onto you. But I don't know if you can convince a company that it has a soul if they don't feel it themselves.
Yeah, maybe it's not for every. So are you saying that maybe every business doesn't have a soul?
Or the soul is in community. Okay. The soul is in community. So, I don't know.
I really enjoyed interviewing for your company, but in the process, I realized your company has no soul.
You have no soul.
But I think you're great.
You're really great.
Let's stay on LinkedIn together.
Just a little bit on the soul part.
Yeah.
A little lacking on the soul. Yeah. Or I don't know. Let's say you're making race cars. Is community the soul of your company, or is it speed? I don't know.
Yeah.
Are there different
souls?
It's
a good take. Yeah.
Is it always community? Again, we might be hammers here.
You've got 100,000 plus communities on the platform. What are the types of trends that you're seeing? What is exciting you right now? Where are you? You're I want to be great at these things. Your focus. Where is that right now, or where is it headed?
Well, I think that one fun thing about being on Reddit is, you see it. It's volume and velocity. I think that's
you see it.
New. That's new. It's the velocity I'm used to. It's the volume, I think, that has been eye-opening. But it's cool because, again, every product manager's dream is that you get to see people kind of hacking the system to create new trends. And so there's some things I'm seeing. I think niche is the new normal. I think that people are continuing to want to get more and more and more micro. I came up on this stage 3 years ago, talked about micro communities. Now there's the micro. It's the sub Reddit.
Yeah.
It's so funny. People want to get so hyper specific. So I think we'll continue to see that. I don't think we've peaked. I think we'll continue seeing this the drive for real and authenticity.
Yeah.
People want to get with other people, and the flat lays are gone. The flat lays of Instagram have passed. People want to know what people are really doing and eating and wearing, and we're seeing that on Reddit, just that people want to be so truly authentic. And I think, again, Reddit, the way Reddit is set up, it allows for that more. Because you can bring your true authentic self. You're not trying to be, you don't have the filters of social media, right? You're not trying to be the me. I'm not I am Laura and here's what I'm trying to do. No, on Reddit, I like all my weird stuff. And I can go and do that and nerd out over aviation with other people. The big sea change I see coming, I don't want it to take up the rest of our time, but the big sea change I see coming is almost the expansion of the promise of the internet. So the promise of the internet, certainly when I was growing up, was democratization of information. That's so cool that oh my gosh, you can do, there's something magical about the old internet when you could really do anything. Yelp, really leveraged this. But, of course, Reddit as well. But I think we're gonna see an expansion of this. I think we're going to start seeing the democratization of economics. I think we're going to start seeing more and more, right now it's the 1% of the creators that are, making the money. I think we're going to start to see that move and shift. I think we're going to see the middle class of creators, or the everyday creator, come through. I think that. Again, this goes hand in hand with authenticity, but I think that what the internet provides is access, and where I'm seeing people hack it is to just get more and more access. And for me, with Reddit's mission to bring community, belonging, empowerment to the world, it just puts us in a really good position to lean in on that empowerment. And it's pretty great, because accessibility is empowerment, education is empowerment, economics are empowerment. And I do love, maybe Reddit's gotten inside of me here a little bit, but I do love that things are getting decentralized and the promise of the internet is expanding to include and incorporate more people.
I thought it was going to be like Nestler.com. Get
Nestler.com.
the NFT project you were working on.
We're dropping some monkeys.
I was ready for the monkeys on pedestals project. That's just sweeping the earth. I hope people, every time I talk to you, like, I'm energized. I'm more optimistic about what's going on. I hope people watching you and listening to you say, I could create that for myself. And I know you're incredibly unique and incredibly unique, even in our industry and people I've ever met in my professional career. But I think a lot of the things you've done are repeatable. If somebody just gets the vision, decides like, I'm going to do this, I'm going here, and then like it's sort of relentlessly focused on achieving that. And you've put together so many different principles on focus, do less, not more, make the most out of your opportunities. There is no hack to succeed at everything. You have to just kind of do the work. Is there anything you'd add to that of encouraging this group of people who are building community to elevate their own careers? What would you suggest?
I mean, one area we didn't cover that I'm really passionate about, and apologies, I know we're over time, but I'm just going to keep talking, is really understanding, getting into human motivation. This was an unlock in my career early on that, one of the most robust findings in social science is one of the most ignored, and that's that these contingent motivators, that if you do this, then you get that, work in very few cases, but more often than not, they actually do harm. So broadly, they do not work, and more often than not, they do harm. And what really motivates people are intrinsic motivations, the autonomy and the mastery and the purpose, right? And I think that with community, it's so tempting to hack it. It's so tempting to want to hack it because it's easy. And right now you're getting, people are breathing down your neck because community is such a buzzword. People want it and they want it now, and there's more levers than ever. And they work for a time, right? The levers, the incentives work. But when you growth hack with incentives, what you lose or what you gain in volume, you lose in authenticity every time, right? In today's market, transactions are everywhere. What's really hard to find is connection. So I would encourage everyone here to really, Predictably Irrational. I can throw out a bunch of books your way. Predictably Irrational. If you want some optimism, read Factfulness, the reasons you're wrong about the world and why it's actually better than you think it is. It's easy to be cynical, so knock that shit off. But I think that ultimately, other than that, other than what I just laid on you, I think that focus, that you will get more by focusing on less and learn that no is an ultimate productivity hack. And the last thing I would just share is, it is a privilege to get to work in this industry. We get to work with humans, remarkable humans, every day. I'm biased. I think I have the most stacked community team on the planet, but I know all y'all are pretty great too. And we get to work with humans and helping them find empowerment and belonging and community. And so I would just encourage you to take a look around the people that are sitting next to you and what you all have done together, the impact that you've had, the real impact you've had on people's lives. And don't let that pass you by. It's so easy to just work. It's so easy to just build your pedestal. So I would just encourage you to just take a minute and recognize this moment that we're in and the fact that we get to do this every day for our jobs. It's remarkable. And then once that minute is over, go deliver,
Laura Nestler, thank you.
Thanks, Derek.
Great.